May the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. So this is the third session of Siwmaga Shakya Puthra sermons. So for last two sermons we didn't do this, but today we are going to pay our homage to the Noble Triple Gem before starting today's sermon by chanting the Namaskara 3 times. So in order to do so, let us all chant this all together and with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, children, how have you been? For last month, we talked about how we should treat our parents. Can you all remember? How did you behave? Did you get a chance to treat your parents well? I'm sure you must have done your best, of course. Today also, we are going to learn something very interesting. Today, we are going to learn how to treat our friends. Because the time that we spend at school, we spend that time mostly with our friends. When we associate these friends, what we encounter most of the time is the association of close friends. You may have already noticed, it might not be very natural to be friends with all people that you meet in life. There might be some interesting people that attract your interest and you become naturally friends with them. This is known as the natural law of attraction. People with same interests are attracted together. As they say, birds of a feather flock together. This is very natural. And children, it is very important to keep in our minds that with this association, it is very likely that we may have views towards them. We may think that some people are not good as the others, and some people are better than others at some things. So, in these views might obscure our true perception of our friends, and we might lose the chance to associate them fully. Therefore, we have to be very careful of our own mind, how it works, because what we think will become true if we were not careful. Let us take a scenario to simplify this, as always. Just imagine you and your best friend in school. You are in the school and you are attending the class, and your friend is very busy. It is his favorite period. Your friend loves mathematics, let's just assume. And you do also, that is why you're friends with them. And he is very busy with a sum. This is a sum that you can't do it all by yourself. Therefore, you try to get help from your friend. But your friend doesn't seem interested. He is very busy with his sum. And you keep on troubling him. You're trying to get attention from your friend and you get no response. Now you tend to think something. You tend to think that your friend, you notice that your friend is busy, but also you might have a thought that he's trying to overdo me. He's trying to override me. So there might be a chance for rivalry. Therefore, children, as you see, so things might come to our mind. When they do, if we were not careful to check them, and we can ask them from our friends or the people who we associate with, and we can check them for ourselves. But if we tend to check them with ourselves, what comes to our mind, then we tend to judge others as our wish. And this might lead to disasters. For example, in this instance, if you think that your friend is jealous of you and he's trying to override you, then you might judge your friend as who he is. And with this judgment, your actions, your speech will be dependent on it. And your friend might feel the same because of your speech and actions were according to your judgment. And when he feels that you are also trying to override him, his actions and his words might change, like that did for you. Therefore, children, what we think is what we become. It's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. If we are not careful, what comes to our mind, if we take them as the truth without checking them with the people that we associate with, it might lead to some misconceptions or misinterpretation of the data. The best thing to do is to confirm by asking. We could jolly well and ask our friends or the people who we associate with, are you jealous of me? It's just a simple question, but it's the most difficult question to ask at that time. Because we don't tend to ask this question because we sometimes feel that it is nothing to ask, it's obvious. That's because we are surrendered to this judgment that is taking place in the mind level. When associating anyone, for that matter, not only friends, even our parents, siblings, relatives, or anybody, these might happen. And it's not a good practice. The best thing in this matter is to confirm just by asking. You can go directly at them and confirm, is this what you're thinking of me? I have a slight doubt I want to clear this with you. When I was trying so hard to come out of that sum, it was a very difficult sum for me. And I was hoping to get help from you. But you were not interested. You didn't even hear when I was calling you. What were you thinking? Were you so busy attending the psalm that you had? Or were you just jealous of me? I really wanted to clear that doubt. Although it's a very simple question to ask, this will be the most difficult question. There is a reason for this difficulty. Because children, it's interesting to notice that how our minds work. We tend to, actually it's not we, it's the quality of this mind. The mind tends to take things for granted. In other words, it always likes to think that things will stay the same, and the things that we feel are the absolute truth. Sometimes people refer to it as the gut feeling. Have you come across that term before? Of course you might have. Some people look suspicious to you. Who says that? You never know. People call it, that's the gut feeling. Sometimes this gut feeling might be not the truth. Therefore, before coming to conclusions with our gut feelings, is very important to confirm by talking. People wouldn't like to talk because they are forced not to confirm it because it's so obvious, because they rely on this gut feeling. Nothing is lost by asking. We can always confirm and leave no doubt to understand and realize what the real truth is. With this technique, we might be able to clear up some doubts in our friendships, in our relationships with our family and friends. Therefore, children, in order to maintain a good friendship, this is very important. As we all know, according to Buddhist philosophy, according to the Buddhism, understanding or realizing the Buddhist philosophy, it takes a noble friend to give the gift that values as your life, because the whole sasana, the Buddha's ministry, is dependent on this noble friend who is going to rescue us from this entirety of this samsara. Because the noble friend accounts for the entirety of samsara. When we meet one day, it is very important to listen to him very carefully and not to give any space for judgment to take place in our minds. So if we have practiced this throughout our life, it might be very beneficial when we listen to the words of a noble friend. It takes a while and it takes a lot of merit to get this exposure of a noble friend and to realize the truth that he exposes. As you see, children, why do we say that it takes a lot of merit to realize this truth? As we talked in our previous talks, what we give is what we get. So if we want to get the realization of this truth which is exposed in Buddhist philosophy. We have to have given something, then only we would get the return. So what kind of thing that should we have given in the first place? That is the merit that we have earned. And it takes a lot of merit. And that is the reason. Therefore, children, we don't know when do we get this chance. But we know one thing. We are born as humans, not just humans. We are born as very healthy humans who can understand what is being spoken. And in an era where a life Buddhist philosophy is still functioning, a Buddha sasana is still functioning. Therefore, we have to be very attentive to our surroundings. When we meet this chance of realizing this truth through a noble friend, we have to get the maximum benefit out of that incident. Therefore, children, it's not only important when we are associating with our friends and family, it is very important always. Because what we feel might not be the truth. We can do other confirmation tests to confirm them. Just the feeling is not enough to confirm. You might feel, and you might feel that that is the truth. It's always a good practice to ask. Even the things that you believe as 100% truth, just ask. And when you come across a very difficult situation where you feel that it's very difficult to ask, why should I ask? It's so obvious. These are the things that you must ask. Because the fact that when we tend to feel that we are uncomfortable asking those kind of things, those are the things that we might go wrong and will lead to misconceptions and miscommunications. And the friendships and the relationships that we might have had for a long time might crack at that moment itself because of these kinds of miscommunication. And also, when you talk to your parents, even teachers, this is very important. Because sometimes you might feel that your teachers and sometimes even your parents, they're pressing you so hard. They're expecting the best out of you because they see some potential in you. Therefore, they might press some things. And you might feel that they are the enemies of you. But that feeling is not enough to conclude that that's the truth. Therefore, children, let us make a practice to always ask questions and confirm. When we ask and clarify things, it becomes always clear of the things that we bear in our minds, whether they are the truth or not. And you can live very freely without bearing any burden in your mind. Because children, you may have realized, when you have a doubt, even a slightest doubt is so heavy in the mind. Have you felt it? Of course, I'm sure. When you have a doubt, even the slightest doubt that you might have, if that doubt is with regards to your best friend or your best teacher, that will be the heaviest. That heavy weight will be borne by your mind, and is very difficult. You won't be able to spend a free life thereafter. Therefore, children, it's high time that we put down these heavy weights in our minds. It's high time that we experience the freedom of this mind. How do we free our mind? Not giving a chance for judgment to happen. It's simple. Just ask the questions that you do not like to ask. It always clears things up. And children, in our future sermons, we will discuss how this happens and why is it difficult. Why is it so difficult to ask these questions? Those are known as defilements of our minds. In our future talks, we will talk them descriptively. So until then, we all have a task to do. The task is to practice. The practice to become free. How should we practice this? When we are in a doubt, just clear the mind by asking. That way, we can clarify things, and it is very easy to come into conclusions. It minimizes the risk of heartbreaks and sad feelings, especially when we are associating friends and family. Because what we believe becomes the truth naturally, according to the self-fulfilling prophecy. What we feel will become the actions and words that we do and that we speak of. Then the others would realize how we think and how we act. Therefore, their truth becomes what you believed. And when they feel like that, they also believe it without asking that question from you. And that is how what you feel becomes the truth, although it is not to begin with. Okay, children, so we may have spent some time realizing how our minds work when we associate with our friends. So to summarize, what we have learned today is, today we did something new in our talks, that is paying homage to the Noble Triple Gem. And you might have heard this before, but for our new kids who are joining overseas with us, this might be a new experience for you, but in no time you will get used to it. This is how we venerate the Noble Triple Gem. And thereafter we started discussing about a good practice that we all should inculcate in our minds. When we encounter some doubts, when we associate our friends and family, when we come across some ugly doubts about our friends and family, we tend not to ask questions and clarify. It is easily missed, these kind of questions, because of the discomfort that we might feel. Therefore, we talked about the adversities that might happen if we don't ask these questions and clarify. And we discussed about what will go wrong and what is the gravity of this problem in the sense of miscommunications, misconceptions. And if you believe in the ugly thing that you feel, and that will become the reality, although that is not the reality to begin with. So this is known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. What we believe is what we become. Therefore, if we get a feeling, as they call it, the gut feeling, if it is ugly, let us always ask it and confirm it. So that is the essence of today's talk. So I believe, my dear children, that you will benefit from today's talk by practicing this in your day-to-day life. So with this, we will conclude our today's talk. And out of the merits that we may have generated today, may through the power of these merits, if any one of them have been born in the woeful plains, may they be redeemed of the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains. May through the power of these merits, may they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds. May they fulfill the meritorious deed, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
නමෝ තස්ස භගවතු අරහතු සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතු අරහතු සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතු අරහතු සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස. Therwan Sarnai, everyone. Today we're going to listen to a story which proves that gender doesn't matter to attain Nibbana. It doesn't matter whether you are a male or a female to attain Nibbana. Some may believe that males can attain Nibbana faster than females. I invite you to listen to this story before you make up your mind. 100,000 years ago, in the time of the Lord Buddha Padumuttara, Dhammadinna was born in Hansavati to a low-income family. They hardly had enough food. To make ends meet, she became a maid. She was a servant to a wealthy household. She was very faithful to her master and mistress. She was very fond of them. She never disobeyed her master. Even though she was poor, she had a heart of gold. She was intelligent and clever. She was diligent in her work and completed all her duties much faster than any of the other servants. Therefore, she received much praise from her master. They, in return, liked her very much, and soon she earned their trust. She became indispensable to her master and mistress. Above all, Dhammadinna was very virtuous and wouldn't even dream of harming others. She was honest and guarded the 5 precepts which she observed daily. One day, she needed to fetch some water and had to travel some distance to reach the well. She packed an oil cake as breakfast to have on the way. Having sought her mistress's permission, she set off early in the morning. On the way, she saw a strange figure striding towards her, coming her way. She could barely make out that it belonged to a human, but still it looked very strange. A few steps closer, even though it was now clear that it was a male she'd seen, the man was clad in a maroon shade which gave the impression of a ghost. She went a bit closer and was relieved to learn that he wasn't a ghost, but a monk. This monk was all by himself and was begging for alms. This young lady was impressed because he was calm and his features were so serene. He wasn't looking around and took one step after the other. The calmness drew her into a trance. She wanted to offer something, but as a poor maid, she didn't have anything. She had not a single cent or penny to offer. Suddenly, however, she remembered that she had brought an oil cake. Can you imagine what was going on in her mind? She knew she wanted to offer the oil cake, but this was the only one she had. She knew she would miss her breakfast and be hungry for the rest of her journey. But she put all those distractions aside and decided to offer it. As she offered her precious oil cake to this monk, her heart filled with happiness. Little did she know that this monk was the chief disciple of Lord Buddha Padumuttara, the great elder, Venerable Sujata Thero. Can you imagine that? Not only that, he had just awoken from a deep state of meditation called the absorption of cessation or Nirodha Samapatti for 7 days straight, which meant that this was the first meal he had taken in 7 days. It was a tremendously meritorious deed. With profound sense of compassion towards the woman, Venerable Sujata Thero helped her rejoice in the merits she had done. To make it even more meritorious, he retreated to a shade of a nearby tree and started consuming the alms he had just collected so that the woman could witness this. The young lady was elated by this sight. He not only accepted my offering, but he is now actually consuming my oil cake that I myself, as a maid, brought up in great hardship, and fed scraps also find hardly appetizing. The news of the servant girl offering her single all cake to the chief disciple, Venerable Sujata Thero, spread through the town, and eventually her master heard the news. Her master was overjoyed that one of his staff so selflessly thought of others over themselves. One day, while she was working, her master came up to her and said, "Young lady, from today onward, you need not work for us. You shall no longer be our servant." She became very worried and asked her master and mistress, "Oh, master, what have I done wrong? Please tell me, and I'll fix it as quickly as I can. Please don't dismiss me." The master said, "Dhammadina, you are no longer my servant. You deserve much better. Your merit makes you a great woman, worthy of a better life than that of a maid. Young lady, I want you to take my son's hand in marriage. I want you to teach him the great qualities you possess and live happily together." Dhammadina was overwhelmed. This was not something she ever imagined. She agreed to marry their son, and they treated their daughter-in-law so dearly. She was treated like a princess. By the way, children, doesn't this story sound familiar? This is almost like Cinderella's story, isn't it? Cinderella was also a servant who later became a princess. Time passed by, and one day she suggested to her husband that they ought to go and meet Venerable Sujata's teacher. The following day, Dhammadina and her husband went to the monastery to meet the Lord Buddha Padumuttara. There was a gathering at the monastery to listen to preaching. At the end of the discourse, Lord Buddha Padumuttara addressed the crowd, and a significant title was bestowed on a particular nun. The Lord Buddha proclaimed, "This is the nun who is foremost among nuns, who can preach the Dhamma most eloquently." Dhammadina's heart filled with joy as she witnessed this great ceremony and invited the Lord Buddha and the Mahasangha for alms the following day. After offering alms, she went to see the Lord Buddha and explained that she too aspired to be like that nun one day. She told the Lord Buddha, "Venerable Sir, by the power of the merits I have accumulated by offering alms to the Lord Buddha and the Mahasangha, may I also someday become like that nun?" The Lord Buddha looked into the future with his divine eye and saw that her wish would be fulfilled. From that day on, she continued to engage in many fruitful meritorious deeds and accumulated tremendous amounts of merit. After she passed away, she was born in the Tusita heaven. She was born again as a princess in the time of the most merciful Buddha Kashyapa, when the average lifespan of human beings were much longer than it is today. She was one of the daughters of King Kasi in the city of Benares in the kingdom of Kiki. She was the sixth daughter, and her name was Princess Sumedha. Even though she had the desire to ordain at a young age, her father refused it. She was unfussed by the king's decision and lived 20,000 years as a celibate. Let's not forget, we're talking about a royal princess. Princesses are known to live like goddesses on earth. Her 6 sisters followed in her footsteps and also chose a life of celibacy. During those 20,000 years, they engaged in many meritorious deeds together. Upon her death, she was born yet again in the Tusidhe heaven. Finally, her last birth was in the kingdom of Magadha, in the city of Rajagaha, to a wealthy elite family. She was known as Princess Dhammadina. When she came of age, her beauty charmed a prince called Vishaka, who was the royal treasurer of Rajagaha. Princess Dhammadina and Prince Vishaka got married and loved each other so dearly. When Prince Vishaka went out to work, Princess Dhammadina would stare out the window, waiting for his return. When she found him entering through the front gate, she gave him the biggest smile, ran down the stairs to open the front door, and extended her hand for Prince Vishaka to kiss. He would embrace her and carry her to the house. Her whole world revolved around him. They loved each other so much. It was an unwavering bond which grew throughout their journey in samsara. They were inseparable, and time bonded them stronger than the strongest of glues. Prince Vishaka was a good friend of King Bimbisara, a powerful devotee of the Lord Buddha. One day, the king took Prince Vishaka to the Lord Buddha, where he listened to a sermon. This sermon changed his life forever. During the sermon, he became Sotapanna, a stream enterer, and by the end of the sermon, he became a non-returner. That day, as usual, Princess Dhammadina waited at the window for Prince Vishaka to return home. She saw him entering through the front gate. She jumped up, put up her most charming smile, and welcomed him. But Vishaka didn't even notice her. His eyes were on the door, not on her. He wasn't giving her his usual smile and went straight to the door. That's when Dhammadina knew something was wrong. His demeanor has changed. She thought, this could be a mistake. Mistake can happen any day. He must have forgotten that I usually stay up waiting for him. As usual, she ran down the stairs and opened the door, extending her arm for her Prince Charming to kiss. However, Prince Vishaka came to the front door and didn't embrace, kiss, or caress her. He walked straight to the front door and into the kitchen. Dhammadina felt her heart gets heavier. A wave of sorrow surged up inside her heart. What have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? I hope I haven't. Am I not good for him anymore? Perhaps something happened while he was out. She didn't give up and went to the kitchen to serve him his favorite food. Prince Vishaka did not savor the dish like he normally would. Very confused and feeling utterly dejected, Dhammadinna started to cry, spilling out all the questions she had been bottling up till then in her mind. She asked, "What have I done wrong? Please talk to me." Then, with newfound noble compassion towards his wife, replied, "My dear wife, you haven't done any wrong to me. I listened to a sermon from Lord Buddha, and now I have no attachment towards women or food. I have attained the state of anagami. I will take care of you for as long as you are with me. Just as I promised, I'll protect you. I'll give you everything you need. I will fulfill my responsibilities agreed upon in the bond of marriage. I now consider it my duty to look after and take care of you, and I no longer have any expectations that you should do the same in return. Whether you decide to go to your parents' house or to stay here, I'm happy for you either ways. If you have any other options, it still won't change where I stand. If you decide to leave, take my wealth, take everything you want. I don't mind. Please leave me some food and some clothes. That's all I need." Dhammadinna started to think. He listened to a sermon and let go of all of it? He wanted me to take all his property? Her whole world shattered. But through the veil of sorrow, she saw the truth. She was brave enough to choose the path her husband had taken, the only way to end all suffering. She finally said, "I now understand what you have said. I do not want to swallow the vomit that you've just thrown up." By which she meant that didn't want to embrace what her husband had let go. So she decided she didn't want to be a lay person anymore. So she requested permission to get ordained under the name Venerable Dhammadinna Theri. She was sent to a monastery in a golden palanquin. Even though Prince Vishaka was an anagami, he fulfilled his responsibilities perfectly. She stayed in this monastery as an anagarika for a while. One day, she went with another 500 lay followers to see Lord Buddha. They worshipped, sat beside and asked Lord Buddha to advise them on their path. Buddha started to preach. At the end of the preaching, Dhammadinna and 500 anagarikas became sotapanna. Due to her merits, she accumulated afterwards. She became an arahant in a very short period of time. She bore extrasensory abilities as well. Once she became an arahant, she decided to go to her hometown of Rajagaha to help people who were known to her. She had great metta. She wanted to help everyone she could. Her former husband, Vishaka, heard that she was returning to her hometown and wondered why she had returned. He thought that her goal, the reason why she came to the sasana, had failed. And she was coming back empty-handed. He went and met Venerable Dhammadinna and asked, "Please, Venerable Nun, may I ask you some questions?" He thought of asking a few questions because he didn't want to embarrass Venerable Dhammadinna by directly interrogating her ability to achieve her goal, and if he had returned home having failed to do so. So, he wanted to find out whether she had realized the Dhamma. He asked her not one, but 33 questions. These were based on different stages of Sotapanna, once returner, and non-returner level feelings, pleasant feelings, neutral feelings, and so forth. Venerable Dhammadinna, realizing her former husband's attempt to establish the level of her realization, answered his questions until the 32nd question. He asked, "What is the counterpart of neutral feeling?" Venerable Dhammadinna replied, "It is ignorance that is the counterpart of the neutral feeling." Then he asked, "What is the counterpart of ignorance?" "Knowledge is the counterpart of ignorance," said Venerable Dhammadinna. "What is the counterpart of knowledge?" "Freedom is the counterpart of knowledge." "What is the counterpart of freedom?" asked Vishaka. "Nibbana is the counterpart of freedom." "What is the counterpart of Nibbana?" "I'm sorry, Vishaka, this is out of your limits. You are an anagami. Answering to these questions are beyond your limits. The spiritual life culminates in Nibbana, and the conclusion is Nibbana." When Dhammadinna was asked these questions, it is said that she answered them like 7 sharp knives slicing through a tender bamboo shoot. Vishaka then went to the Lord Buddha and asked the questions and said, "My Lord, I asked my former wife this question, but she said I wouldn't comprehend it." Then the Lord Buddha said, "Yes, she is an arahant. She has attained arahantship. She is no longer like you. You are an anagami, but she is an arahant." The premise of this question is beyond your reach. The Lord Buddha recited these stanzas. "Yassa purecha pachacha, majjecha nati kinchana, akinchanang anadanang, tamahang brumi brahmanang." The one who does not cling to the past, future, or the present 5 aggregates, free from moral defilements and attachment, is that person I call a Brahman. The Lord Buddha, having seen the depth of her wisdom and her depthness to preach the Dhamma, bestowed upon her the title of the foremost among nuns, who can preach the Dhamma most eloquently. When Dhammadinna became an arahant, her husband had only achieved the state of anagami. Dear children, doesn't this prove gender doesn't matter? When it comes to realizing the truth, gender doesn't matter. When it comes to realizing the truth, race doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. No matter who you are, no matter how old, what color, what language you speak, realizing the truth doesn't need any of that. In her paean, Venerable Dhammadinna says, "I have done what the Lord Buddha had taught. The hefty burden that I carried has been laid down. the ties of existence severed, the reason for which I went forth from my home into homelessness. I have now achieved that purpose. Destruction of all fetters. I have mastered the superpowers like divine ear and clairvoyance. I know the minds of others too. I have done what the teacher taught. I remember my former lives. My divine eye is purified, throwing out all defilements. I'm purified and I'm stainless. All new existence is destroyed like elephants with broken chains. I'm living without constraint. I've done what the Buddha taught. Dear children, she did what the Buddha taught. That's why she was liberated. She says that the best thing that happened to her was being in the presence of noble friends. Without the noble association, she wouldn't have attained it. This story dispels the myth that males are able to understand the Dhamma better than females. You see, this story proves gender doesn't count. Physical characteristics are insignificant. It's all about the mind. The mind realizes the truth. It is the speciality of Buddhism. Nothing can stop you, nothing but yourself. The way you think determines how close or far you are from your freedom. When death approaches, we can't have excuses. If you are a girl, a woman, a man, or a boy, or if you are 7 years or 170 years old, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor, black or white. None of those things matter. You can make her your role model. Let's strive. Let's be like Dhammadinna. Make the time to listen to the Dhamma. Take every effort to understand Dhamma. Be with noble friends, because they are the only one who can guide you on your journey. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.